Hi, I am Mike Hendrix from smbGOLF, and today my guest is Bryan Lord, who founded Teesnap, and this is the Tech Caddie podcast. Bryan, welcome to the podcast. Excited for the conversation.
Me too. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, for people that don't know, Teesnap started, it's not as old as some of the other tee sheets and point of sales. It's actually one of the newer ones that came along really when I was like right in the middle of golf technology. And I thought it would be great to have you on. I don't know if you've ever watched the pod before, but we have a lot of founders and people that are trying to be founders that watch the podcast. And then we have a lot of golf course operators that watch the podcast. And so I'm always thinking about those people and how I can give them some value with the podcast. And I thought, well, man, you have seen it from so many different angles. I thought it would be really cool to have a conversation and learn about what you're up to today as well.
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's give a brief overview. I'll give a brief overview of Teesnap. Today, Teesnap is point of sale and tee sheet, and actually marketing services as well. Marketing services has become pretty important at Teesnap. It is rooted, if that's the right way to say it, it is rooted in iOS. Teesnap operates primarily on iPads, but there is a back office function that you can be in any computer. But talk to us, give us some insight into why you wanted to start Teesnap. Maybe even did it have a different name at some time? You had to go raise money, all those things. It'd be interesting to hear the origin story of Teesnap.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it goes back to when I was a student at Purdue. I wanted to book tee time on my phone, which, to be clear, Mike, I mean, GolfNow really ended up accomplishing that problem very well. But I didn't really know. I wasn't familiar with the industry. I'm not like a PGA pro. I worked at golf courses when I was young and on grounds maintenance, like mowing greens, fixing ball marks, mowing fairways. But I did that just because I wanted to play free golf. It was a cool job to wake up at 4 a.m. You work 4 or 5 hours, the rest of your day. So I did enjoy it. But as far as like understanding the operations of a golf course, that was never my bailiwick. I never worked, in the pro shop. But as a consumer, I early adopter of tech. So I had, early smartphones, Windows phones long before the advent of the iPhone. At the time, the reservation industries were coming online, like Expedia, Travelocity, the edge of the internet. And I kind of thought, golf should have the tee times. GolfNow ended up, solving that problem amongst other vendors. But along that path, I started to talk to golf course operators, and people had a lot of pain with their operational software. And I'll admit that I was fortunate, lucky to figure out that people had very specific complaints, but those individual complaints would not be a reason to change your software, right? Like a lot of people like to complain about things. Oh, if you only did this one thing, I would change everything. Well, that's actually not true. They wouldn't. But what I found at the time, really, which you can appreciate, Mike, knowing a lot of operators, no operator told me the problem, right? But the problem was the disparate systems problem, right? Of course, you got to go back 2000, really 2006, 7, 8, 9, right? The disparate systems problems was huge, right? Your tee sheet was separate from your point of sale, separate from the CRMs, all separate systems. The best you could do is ETL, Excel spreadsheets, give it to accountants, try to mash things together. No one said it that way, but that was the takeaway. So the idea was, hey, instead of addressing like the online tee time marketplace, which at the time, I think 2000, that problem was starting to be solved, but the operational software wasn't. And I think at the time, I remember, maybe I'm butchering the numbers, I want to say the average vendor in the space was like 23 years old. This is like,
yes.
Right. So part of the thesis was, and then like the number 3 player globally in the space, I think was Club Profit. I think that could be wrong, but just know that from my perspective, before GolfNow bought EasyLinks, it was GolfNow, EasyLinks. I think Club Profit was number 3, maybe IBS, but I thought IBS was small.
IBS certainly had a good footprint, and then even you can't discount things like Jonas on the private
On the
side, right?
private side, yeah.
Jonas had a big footprint. Club Profit, for people that don't know, based in Pittsburgh and was server based, and which clearly Teesnap was not. Right, Teesnap was going to be in the cloud and really change things.
But I'd also say the disparity between number one and number two and number three and four is ginormous. And today, that's still the case. You look at like golf, like look at the number two player globally in the space compared to number one. So part of the thesis was like this space is just underinvested. And so do I need to be another vendor that raises, $1 million for 20% of the company and you know what I mean, and tries to go into the space? Or could we do something radically different and say, what if we came in with dare I say, deep pockets, and we just made kind of a run for the industry, which I think, Mike, I think you were a VP at GolfNow kind of during that time, I think. And yeah, so I mean, it was really fun. And so, it took me, everybody always sees the last page of the book, not the other 500 pages. It took me a couple years to raise capital. I mean, that was a struggle.
Well, let me ask you something in raising capital, because I think a lot of people that watch this are trying to do that. How long did it take you to refine your pitch? Not obviously to sell to golf course operators. Refine your pitch around this is why you should invest in this company I'm going to build. How long did it take to get that tight to where you felt really comfortable telling the story?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it probably took a year just to get decent at the story. I think the other thing that I subsequently got a lot better at, which is, and I, I'm an advisor and I sit on boards of a lot of companies. I see a lot of deal flow, not specifically in golf, but not excluding golf. And a lot of times people are like, I'm going to change the world. We're going to be the largest player in the space, Mike. I just need $200,000. And it's like, it's like, I'd almost take it seriously if you were asking for like 25 million.
Right.
Right. And so I think part of it was I got better at being like, wait a minute, like we could probably come in and buy the number 2, 3, 4 competitor, right? We could build something state of the art. Nobody really, I mean, dare I say, Mike, nobody really had a good brand, in my opinion, back in those days. And so, which I care a lot about, which Teesnap got a ton of compliments from the brand and the materials and the booths and not vendors, not necessarily competitors of ours, but like other big
Right. You cared more about like what Madison Avenue in terms of a marketing and strategy kind of a world would have said about the brand, rather than what they would have said out of some tee sheet company in Virginia or something like that.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, that's well said. So ended up raising, a lot of money. I would venture to say in golf software, I don't think anybody's probably raised as much at this point. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe in acquisitions and private equity, but I think from just an entrepreneur raise, we raised a lot of cash, which was fun.
Are you familiar with Whoosh today?
I am.
So more than Whoosh, just
Yeah.
to help us in a ballpark.
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay.
Yep. The job to be done was to, build the best thing in golf, the best things golf ever seen, and go out and hire all the best salespeople, as I think you probably remember, and go out and make a run for it. And for a while there, it went quite well.
It did. I don't know everybody that was on the cap table at Teesnap, but you did get Maury Gallagher to invest, and he had invested in golf previously, so it wasn't foreign to him. And safe to say he was your number one investor or largest investor.
Yep. There were effectively two people, effectively what became Allegiant and myself.
Okay, got it. And so you're speaking about Allegiant Airlines.
Or he's the chairman. I think he's the chairman right now. I don't think he's the CEO anymore.
Got it. And just for what it's worth, Allegiant had an interesting idea, because I think they ultimately did build Sunseeker Resort. But I know on some level, Allegiant thought they could use golf to create more traffic for the airline, actually have a hub there. And I guess that would be Northern Florida, if I have that right. And that was part of the long-term strategy.
Yes. So, for the pitch directly with Allegiant, I mean, I changed the deck, right? So at the time that was fly, play, stay, drive, right? Golf balls, right? And the idea being that at the time there was no, and probably still to this day, there's no way to really book that whole experience in one fell swoop. And what was unique to Allegiant, may still be, I'm not sure, is that Allegiant's kind of like Priceline.com, but it's like Allegiant Air is the only airline, and then the rest of the vendors. And so like adding golf to that, package was kind of the idea. We never got there, but that was kind of part of the deal. And you could do interesting things with golf clubs, and you could loss leader over here and revenue over there. There were ways to kind of think about how to make it pretty attractive.
That model today would be even more interesting, just because there's
Yeah.
so much more demand for golf today.
And if you look at interestingly and very unique to Allegiant, right? They have some presence or very drivable presence in just about every major golf destination market in America. I know it's not, as big of an airline as say Delta, but I mean, name a golf destination, right? They don't fly to Phoenix, but they do fly to Mesa, right?
And I would assume they have Myrtle if you're talking golf destination.
They change their routes, so I don't know exactly, but I would imagine they do.
Yeah. So Allegiant was a publicly traded company. I mean, look, Comcast is a publicly traded company. Now Versant Media will be a publicly traded company. So
Yep.
nothing, nothing crazy there. How long was your run as the CEO of Teesnap?
Like 7.5 years.
So yeah, so you saw lots of probably ebbs and flows. Talk about, we don't want to, I don't want this to be a 3-hour podcast, but give us a little bit of like, well, this is what the first 10 customers were like. Then we figured this out, and we got to the next 100 customers. Like, give us a feel for what you had to do to grow it once you had the investment and once it was essentially birthed.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go back to like 2000, 12, 13, 14, right? Apple stores were really cool. I mean, that was like a thing. I mean, today I think they're still pretty cool, but if you if you have a phone, you've probably, even if you don't have an iPhone, you've probably been in an Apple store, right? But at the time, you got to go back over 10 years ago, right? That was a cool thing, right? And so part of the pitch was more, you know, you're kind of sick of what you have. You want to shake up your operations. I'm kind of the excuse for you to do that, which we basically try to sell change. And it was hard. I mean, the early sales, it was a really cool, I mean, Mike, I think you can appreciate it was actually a really easy company to pitch. The issue was, the requirements, right? It was just every golf course being like, well, I need a punch card program. And you're like, well, how about this is your excuse to change the program?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
you sold a lot of change.
convert all that to club credit and, you know what I mean? And do a different program or something, right?
Yes, one of the
Um,
biggest, I guess, things of change that you sold was how you wanted to handle email addresses with the golfer. If the golfer wanted to check in, I think in the beginning, I mean, the clerk absolutely had to collect an email address to get that golfer checked in, because you understood the value of
yeah.
database,
Yeah.
a golfer database.
It wasn't an issue of doing the printer, right? It was more like we wanted, like, the funny thing about it is the operators wanted the same thing that we wanted, which was they wanted the data, they wanted the information. And of course, the issue was always kind of the friction behind the counter to make it happen, right? Which we're all aware of. I mean, I would say now it's probably more standard than it was, back then. But like anything, Mike, when you're the first to make some moves like this, it's always going to be more painful. But I mean, these are kind of badges and scars of honor, if I'm honest with you. I mean, it was hard. And, I constantly told operators, for good or bad, I was like, look, like, I will fly to your golf course. I will buy a shirt off the rack. Don't give it to me. And I'll work the counter and I'll have your patrons walking out laughing. Like, you don't have a software problem. You don't have an email collection problem. You have a people problem. And it was really hard for people kind of looked at me like, well, yeah, you could do it. And it's like, well, I mean, maybe I can show your staff how to do it. Like, at the end of the day, Mike, right? Like, the friction, right, can really be overcome by somebody charismatic.
But then I guess the question becomes, how scalable is that? How many charismatic people can you get behind a golf shop counter? That I think that does have to be considered when you're thinking about scaling the company.
Well, yeah, agreed. But we were the first to do it. And that now look. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not here to take credit, but I think Teesnap did a lot of things for the golf industry, which are still around today.
Right. And
So,
it really, I would say, beyond the golf industry today, and a lot of people know this, is there's a lot of golf people that work at Toast. Today, Toast has done an amazing job of collecting, actually, what I like to refer to as golfer 2, 3, and 4. the way Toast has set up their loyalty program with the little self-serve checkout interaction is an amazing unlock for golf courses if they want to go that route.
Yep.
And I think you were an early version of
Yeah.
that idea.
Yep. Yep. Um, that and brand, right? Same thing, right? I think Teesnap, I mean, Mike, please push back, but I think Teesnap really kind of put some pressure on the rest of the vendors in the space to start to care about the brand and the identity of the company.
Agreed. And also probably woke us up to what was it that we did well at GolfNow? The thing that we did, I thought exceptionally well, was more about strategy than anything. It was that we paid for boots on the ground. We believed in having people in market and felt that would create such a moat for us that it would be hard to ultimately assail, so to ultimately surpass us. And I'm not so sure that to this day that isn't still the biggest secret of GolfNow, is just all these people out there in golf shops every day, talking to people, bringing them cupcakes, bringing them pizza. It's hard to overcome that.
And in 2014, I mean, we started to bring on a sales force, and I looked at Maury and said, "Hey, I think these people should live. I think they should work from their living room and get in their car and drive down to their local golf courses." And so we were a remote company a decade before COVID, or I guess not a decade, 6 years before COVID. And I would say over time, kind of mastered that. When COVID came, all the experts came out to teach us about remote work, and it's like at the
Yeah.
time, like not a lot of companies, and we've been doing it for years, and we had a large staff.
I
So,
remember
so
one of the first calls we ever had at NBC because of COVID. And I thought to myself, we're already remote. Like, this doesn't concern me at all. The sales team is already out there. So I wasn't too concerned about it. Okay. So you agree with boots on the ground. You create this brand that really we hadn't seen before in golf. It was sleek. It was clean. The whole iOS thing was still very new. I mean, the concept, frankly, of a mobile check-in, check-out experience with, mobile for the starter, super revolutionary. How did I want to go back to that, customers 11 through 100. How did it ultimately start to get traction? Did you ultimately find what people refer to as an ICP, your ideal customer profile? Did you figure out the pro that Teesnap would resonate the most with?
I mean, do you ever? I mean, I think at the beginning it was talking to the people that were ready for change, right? Because enterprise resource planning is hard to build. It takes a long time, right? It takes a really long time, right? I mean, where does a loyalty program fall on the roadmap when you got to build a refund, right?
Right.
Right? Which is tough, right? But I constantly reminded the team that the problem that we're solving is the disparate systems problem. And Teesnap solved that right out of the gate, right? One customer record, one database, a suite of products, right? No more ETL, no more disparate reports, right? And it was like, if we can go out and remind people that's your pain point and that's what we solve. Oh, and by the way, the beverage cart iPad is the same system, same database, same customers as the one in the restaurant, which is the same one in the pro shop, which now can be the one in the parking lot, on the putting green, right? Very, very, I would say, easy to sell the concept, right? The implementation got hard just in the sense of like, oh, wait, you don't have a punch card program, or whatever the requirement was. And we have to come in and be very clever, like, hey, let's convert that to credit book, or let's rethink this a little bit, right?
Yes.
We were selling change. I mean, that was the big thing. And I remember one of the PGA shows I spoke, and I basically said, like, the problem with historically, and I say this with love of the golf industry, but it's like you can't use the same thinking that got you into the problems, to get you out, right? And so, like, I would say the idea that the customer is always right, I think is a good ethos, but the reality is, right, like the software vendors became so bloated because they built everything everybody asked for. And what I kind of took, so I would kind of argue professionally that the golf industry did that to themselves. It's actually the golf course operators that made their software as messy as they did, because they picked up the phone, they called their vendors, and they said, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave you. And so they did it. And you do that for 20 years, you wake up and it's like, who are you anymore?
Yeah.
What I told our team is like, I've done my, you're going to laugh. I've done my job if I have equally dissatisfied everybody.
Understood. Yeah.
And I don't mean
Understood.
dissatisfied with the product, but it's like, yes, I'm talking to, Johnny operator over here, and they do this one thing, but it's like, I've got a roadmap that's much, much larger, much, that I'm trying to manage, right? So
Understood. Yeah.
we took all the feedback, and the question was like, how did the feedback paint a picture that we could develop to, not an individual operator or an individual MCO. We were moving too fast to even let the largest MCO at that time really interrupt us.
You mentioned MCOs because it's interesting to me. I don't know if the economics ultimately work, but it's almost as if Teesnap could have been something more had it been owned by an MCO of size that really believed in like, look, I'm going to remodel the golf shop. We're going to change the way we interact with our customer because I'm not so sure a software company on its own can do that. I don't even know that Apple has fundamentally changed the way SMBs operate today, right? But a T-Snap inside of a large management company, that would have been really interesting if at the executive level there was serious buy-in.
Yeah, and I think the trouble there is like it's like we want everything to work exactly the way it does with our legacy system, and we want to drop it in a brand new system. And Mike, if you remember at the time, I know some of the people probably watching this that know me. I just was like, why are you asking to do the same thing you already have? Like that makes literally no sense to me. You're
Right.
going to rip out all of your operational software to drop in the exact same functionality. Like walk me through how that's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe
I
better for the bottom line. I think a lot of us sold operation technology based on what it would do to the P&L.
Well, and I think there's an aspect of that as well, right? I mean, it definitely wasn't designed to just be this cost center, right? Hence, we built really good marketing tools and really used transactional data, I think, in ways at the time nobody else was doing. And then, of course, we had it, no one was using it. So then we came up with kind of managed marketing services, right?
Yep.
Which did extremely well. That most of the time, Mike, your forecast, especially in a startup, you forecast 10x and you get X.
Yeah.
This time we actually forecasted X and we got 10x. We're like, it's all there. It's all done. You can go do it. And they're like, we don't know how to do it. We don't have the time to do it. And we're like, well, pay us to do it. And they were like, done.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
That's why we
surprising.
started GolfNow Plus, which was also managed marketing. But when I started GolfNow Plus, actually the driving force behind it, I mean, certainly revenue was behind it, but the number one way we kind of sold it internally was we felt like we had delivered some pretty good pricing tools, especially for at the time in golf, and not enough operators were using the tools. The operators in Phoenix were using them, and it kind of stopped there. And we got to a place where we thought, well, what if we did this for the customer? It would ultimately elevate the value of the GolfNow relationship. And so that was really what drove it. And then honestly, Brian, we kind of stumbled into more revenue than we anticipated. And then the revenue actually became, substantial and important to the company. So, okay. So the company, I always think of Dragonfly when I think of Teesnap because you guys did an amazing marketing program around Dragonfly and you showed how they used the product and et cetera. I think Dragonfly was near where you were living at the time, or maybe you lived at one time, but you probably had some personal relationship there.
I walked into the pro shop and I met I think, part owner and GM at the time. And he kind of had an idea to go into that business. And I basically was like, well, I've got Allegiant behind me and we're doing this. And they became a great advocate. And he was great because he was willing to change his operations. He was willing to change his operations to make it work. I mean, I'll tell you a great story. There was a time when we could book a tee time, we could transact a tee time, but we didn't have the concept of a cart or a pull cart. Again, just selling early and selling fast, right? And so they just used different color poker chips. So they'd hand somebody a different color poker chip and they'd walk out, hand it to the cart person. And that's how they knew whether you had a card or not had a card or a pull cart, whatever it was. But that just shows you like the idea of iPads, the idea of this mobile system. We were a payment facilitator, but that wasn't even a word in 2015. We kind of brought that whole thing to the golf industry. No one else had well, frankly, Mike, no one else really in the world had done it other than Uber and a few other companies. We talked to the major banks and they were like, you can't do this. And I was like, well, actually you can do it. And then of course we got it done, but that was another very unique part of the system.
And now today that's become, a cornerstone of these companies is really the revenue that they generate from payments.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, and for us, the collection of payments, right? And T-Snap not directly, but to some degree was kind of the bank as well, right? So,
Right.
which is also very, very unique to have all the operational cash flow going through you. So if you're the point of sale, right? Right? If you're the merchant of record at the time the sale happens, then at 11:59:59, right? You already know the products that are sold. You already know gross credit card. You already know that stuff. That will settle over the next 1 to 7 days. But I can turn around and remit the money right back to the golf course the next day. Why? Because I have all the information. When you're all disparate tools, you can't do that because you don't know.
Right.
You don't
Right.
know what's coming. We knew what was coming. And that was another thing where it's another like, hey, like you're getting paid from GolfNow, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days later. How about you just get one number the next day and that's it?
So,
Right.
so
We
when
picked
you
on we picked on all the vendors when it came to that. I mean, that's not to be specific to GolfNow, but if you weren't Teesnap, you had multiple deposits. Your bookkeeper was trying to match the deposits to get the revenue numbers right. It's like with us, it's like nope, one number, one deposit matches every day, and people are like, that's incredible.
Yeah. Now, you've brought up GolfNow a couple of times. You elected to not work with GolfNow. You elected to not have an interface. And for what that means for people listening, it wasn't going to be easy for a golf operator using Teesnap to go sell tee times on GolfNow. They actually could do it in a manual way, but it wasn't going to be as easy as, say, if you were using 4 reservations or something like that. Talk a little bit about that. Why did you opt for a closed platform, if I can call it that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, to be clear, it wasn't just GolfNow. I didn't have integrations with anybody, and
Agreed. Yes. Yeah.
that was a feature, not a bug.
Right.
So look, there'll be a lot of people that are going to learn something here because I think they have a certain memory of this very subject. I would say 70% of that driving force was I didn't want to carry the distraction of integrations with the largest dev team in software in golf globally. Right? Like we had way too much stuff to build to have GolfNow be like, hey, we made some API changes. It's like, no, thank you. Like, not happening. Like, don't care. Like, unsubscribe. Right? Like, truly, it was just like 70% of it was just like, don't want to deal with that. The other thing is we wanted to go to non-destination golf courses. And Mike, I'll let you critique me, but I thought I did a pretty good job of convincing the industry that if you got off GolfNow, Steve and Maury are still going to show up at the 7:30, club, at 7:30 in the morning, and they're standing tee time, right? Sure, they didn't get the hot deal, but I don't think they're going to change clubs because of it. And I think we were mostly right.
Yeah. And so but that also means that you weren't going to go play ball in Phoenix or in Orlando or something like that. That you were going to focus on. Now, look, I live in a flyover state, so I have to be careful the way I say this, but you were going to focus on maybe not the 10 biggest golf markets in America.
Yeah, because but to be clear, right, as a percentage of all golf courses, right? I remember this conference as well. I mean, I don't know, but I kind of have that theory that maybe 5% of the courses in the country maybe do demonstrably better directly because of it. At the time, I mean, I think it's a lot different. Golf's a lot different today than it was in 2019, 18, right? So that's my caveat. So at the time, a big part of it was if the customer lives in Fresno, California, right? Like, does the global distribution channel matter? Or are they just going to wake up and say, I'm playing golf independent of how I need to book this? I
Yeah.
mean, I get it. If you're waking up in Vegas, at 8 o'clock in the morning, like, yeah, like that perfect use case for like any global GDS system, like totally get it. But at the time, we were trying to be different, Mike, right? Again, my big ethos was like, if we're going to do this, like, why would I do everything that everybody else has? So
Mm-hmm.
and there's all a moment in time. I think my guess is GolfNow probably has a much different stance in the golf industry today with golf booming and travel golf going up. I mean, the S&P 500's more than doubled in the last 5 years. Like you got to remember, like, travel golf in 2018, Mike. Like, the idea that it's a huge industry as a percentage of all rounds, very small,
Right.
very
Right.
small.
Yeah.
So it was like, I don't. To your point, Mike, it's like I don't really care about Phoenix. Remember, there's a lot of people who live in Phoenix which still drive.
And maybe you haven't given a lot of thought, do you think you would be open to integrations today? Not just GolfNow, but integrations in general. I mean, we see so many people building apps that work with golf operating systems, and some of them, really good apps. Would that interest you, or do you think your mindset would be more of, if someone builds an app and I think it's great, I'll go build that as a feature?
Well, I mean, look, I think the industry is different now, and I think Teesnap set out to solve a certain group of problems, and I think a lot of the industry now is I'm going to say kind of copying that, but I don't mean that like patting myself in the back, good or bad. I just mean like, like to your point about payment facilitation and payments and, brand and like a lot of other things. Like I think the industry is kind of like, oh, like these are kind of now standards. So not standards, but like it's barrier to entry, right? So I think generally speaking, like I think people think I'm anti-integrations. I mean, in 2025, I mean, I don't know if I started an ERP company, I'd probably have integrations.
Yeah.
But again, the question is there, like, if you're going to do it again, what's going to be your differentiator? Are you just going to build a modern version and some modern framework with all the same features that has all the integrations? Like, I just don't, to me, it's like, it's not, now I have to go back to every operator and be like, hey, like, so let's change again. Like, like there needs to be a real problem to solve. Like payments has been solved. Mobile's been solved. Like most people have some version of some mobile thing as part of the offering, right?
Yes.
When you go down, I'm not saying all the problems have been solved, but you know, when you start to look at some of these tertiary companies, I wonder if they're just features of these existing ERPs. Like I'm very, very worried for some of these vendors that are doing very well. I know that if I were at Teesnap, I would be like, yeah, that's a roadmap item. I can build your company with our team in 6 weeks and deploy it and offer to our customers as part of their existing subscription or whatever the fees are.
Yeah. But I do think you have a lot of respect though for what it takes to build a company, what it takes to start a company. And part of that is go to market strategy and frankly, go to market execution. Set the tech execution aside for a second, but go to market execution. And maybe I'm on a boat of one here. I believe if you are a startup and you out execute just about everybody on go to market, even though you might be a feature, you might get such a stronghold that it doesn't matter because you just got to the mountaintop faster than most. And then you will rely on relationships. You will rely on, iterations of your product. I'd be interested to get your take on that.
You know, I think it's true that I still question longevity, right? Like eventually, right? Like waitlist tee times is going to be in every ERP system. It's just inevitable. It's just inevitable. Right?
Understood.
But I'm not suggesting that the current vendors don't have a great hold on it. But eventually, right? Like the relationship matters, right? But eventually it's going to be like, I cannot have that vendor. I can save money and it's just part of my current offering.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we don't have to dance around it. To some degree, we're talking about Noteefy. And I think most people know I'm on record as saying, I just think their execution is unbelievable. I am so impressed with how they brought the market to product, how they follow up, how they iterate. It is an impressive thing to watch from the sidelines. It is an impressive thing to watch. That's what, when I think of execution, I think of Jake and Dathan. That's what comes to mind.
Look, it's a great, I mean, the proof's in the pudding, right? Like I don't have anything negative to say about their execution. They've done a great job. I mean, I don't have a dog in this fight, right? I mean, they've done a great job. I'm just saying that, like, if this were 2018 and I was the CEO of Teesnap, I would be like, no, like we'll just go build.
Yep. Although it's interesting because earlier you were saying I already have a roadmap, and so, but I'm sure you're.
Well, no, I didn't say I would have. I didn't say I'd build it right then. Maybe I would have built it in 2024, right? It may have taken me like 6 years to get there, but it's like we can just do that.
Yeah, understood. Okay, I do want to get back to your time at Teesnap, but I feel like this is a good spot to maybe talk about the future a little bit. The future today, it's hard to be in technology and not have AI be part of the conversation. I'd be super curious to get your take on AI in golf. And maybe, and look, we don't have to just stay in golf. You're certainly involved in businesses outside of golf. Talus Ridge is very successful. We'll put the logo up in the podcast and people can go check out Talus Ridge. But I am super curious to get your thoughts and ideas around golf, let's call it golf SaaS and
Sure. So is a screwdriver, or maybe it's the whole bin of tools, right? It's not a solution. The solution is not AI. AI is the tool, right? That helps get to whatever the solution is and get there faster. Said simply, right? Guy's really good at making sense and curating, digesting, and conversationally talking about unstructured data, right? Using AI as like a developer to code something, like that doesn't mean the solution's an AI solution. It just means the solution was built in assistance with AI to help, speed up the software development, right? I see a lot of people, dancing around kind of AI in golf. I think if there's an opportunity, I think it's really around unstructured data. So what's unstructured data? Well, unstructured data is not tee times, right?
it's interesting you're bringing this up because for the last 2 months I've been living inside of structured data, and it really came to realize how many golf courses, well, how many website developers don't use structured data when it comes to these websites they've built. But so you're talking about the opposite, unstructured data. So go on. Sorry to interrupt.
So in terms of marketing, understanding what's going on in the golf world, I think AI can go out and bring back results for that. That's very unstructured. Can those results then be paired with tee times and availability? Right. I think there's ways to use AI. I have been asked many times, well, like, could you use AI to build another Teesnap or some version of that, right? A Club Profit. And my answer to that would be, if there was a problem to be solved there, it would be, I think, and I'm not even saying this is a good one. It would be, could you use AI to basically build Jonas or Club Caddie or something robust, but build it in 6 months for like 100 grand or less, where you could go out and you could be like, yeah, subscribe to my service for $99 a month. And
Yes.
the 4 reservations of 2026, right? Where you get to have the same functionality everybody wants, everybody needs, right? You somehow figure out the onboarding and the changeover, which is always tricky, right? And then it just becomes so cheap that there's nothing anybody can really do. It becomes like such a lost leader. And you can get away with $100 a month because you don't have the capital expenses Teesnap had. You don't have the investment of other companies, right? Like, people don't appreciate, like, the reason why the rates are on the rise is because it's expensive to do these things, right?
Yes. But certainly AI has lowered the cost.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
I'm saying, like, the solution doesn't need to be AI. The solution could be using AI to get to a solution way faster so you can more competitively price your product.
It's interesting. So the last podcast we did was with a gentleman named David Clark. He's built his own tee sheet. He's out of Missouri. It's with Square, right? So he's built one integration so that if a golf course wants to use Square, they can use his tee sheet. And we talked a little bit about AI, and I know he does use AI to help for development, but his take actually was he doesn't think AI replaces a tee sheet because that isn't really what you use AI for. Like the tee sheet's already structured in a way that it already works pretty well. Like he was saying, like, I don't know, like what AI is going to do better for a tee sheet.
Exactly, right? Like, you could use AI for a tee sheet, but I'm not sure the outcome is any different. That's the problem. Like, AI and structured data is like a sledgehammer hanging a pitcher. Like, you can get it done, but it's not. I don't know that that's really the right tool. That's as AI is today. Maybe that'll change. I mean, AI is changing very rapidly, right? But as of today, I see it around unstructured data, right? Like, how do you search a database of every marketing message you've ever had and have AI do that and come back and be like, categorize all this, right? And tell me what days I ran all this. Then have AI go into your reports and say, now match up all the revenues based off all the, all right. I don't know if I need to finish that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of value in kind of the unstructured aspect of that, but I don't think anybody's really looking at that yet, because marketing tools in golf are not built by golf. They're typically just third parties.
Let me get your take on, so what we kind of discovered in the last, it was like a 4-month research project where we looked at over 15,000 golf course websites and essentially found that next to no one had taken the time to put the schema markup into any golf course webs. I mean, there was like one management company had done it, but like very, very, very few people were even hip to the concept of schema markup. Are you of the opinion that if you can provide the information faster and cleaner to AI, it will consume it, and you would be better off than slowing the AI down and having it read, just some front end text and hoping that it gets it right? I'd be curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree. Look, AI is really good right now. The issue is like, how do you bring it to an industry like golf, right? Which has, historically been pretty slow to adopt.
Yes, yes,
Which I won't pick on golf. I mean, the restaurant industry, banking, right? I mean, even airlines. I mean, the front end of a website for an airline might look brand new, but the infrastructure behind it could be, 30 years old. Banking. I mean, so there is an aspect that you could make an argument that because golf is not as risky as I would say like banking or like airlines, maybe they are a little farther ahead. But the adoption of this stuff still takes a long time. I mean, look at NFTs, right? Like what happened with that?
yeah, yeah,
That was like this hot crate. Everything was an NFT, right? And
yes.
it's like, I can't go and buy a house with an NFT, which is the perfect use case for an NFT. That should be a thumbprint transaction, digital, done, no paperwork.
And
The
no
you
cent.
and I mean, there's no bank I don't think there's a bank in the US that can do that right now.
Right, right.
And that is the perfect real world use case. So what happens with all this adoption is you always use it for this kind of silly thing at, Bored Ape, and like putting an NFT on a thumb drive in you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
that's a weird use case. And I think the beginning of this, we're seeing some of this in golf a little bit.
So today, I think one of the leaders, I think that's the right way to say it, when it comes to AI in golf would be Course Rev. I don't know if you're familiar with Course Rev, but essentially what they've done is they're already at 30 plus clients using AI to answer the phone. Just to pare it down quickly. Now I know they've got a lot of things that are coming and a lot of features with that. Uh, but again, I go back to David Clark from the last episode. He said to me that, well, like we've had phone systems that can listen to people for a long, long time and let people book a tee time without ever talking to a human being. So again, he was a little perplexed as to why do we need AI to do this? Do you think that that's also correct?
I think it's a little different. I mean, I think the AI for call centers is pretty good. I think ultimately, I mean, we looked at the space. I've been looking at that space for year and a half, maybe 2 years now, that specific space in golf. I think that that's going to be like Notify.
Got it.
I think, well, I shouldn't say just Notify. I'm not trying to pick on Notify. It's a great company, but I think that's a feature. I think that because, when we talk about like, oh, we've built AI, like Course Rev has not built AI. They're using somebody else's AI. They're putting together, which they should. I wouldn't build the AI. I mean, there's very, very few companies in the world that actually build the AI. So these are kind of off the shelf parts that anybody can really just go Google the vendors and go put together the conversational workflows and go do. Like it's not a major lift, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and then I guess it's just some baking time, if you will, for the LLMs to learn and get better and better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I view that more like you deployed a version of your software and you got a few bug fixes. It's kind of the same thing, right? I mean,
Agreed.
it's not the same thing, but it's the same. I'm saying fundamentally, it's always a little bumpy at the beginning. LLM same way, software development same way. Like there's no version, Mike, where it's just
Yes, yes. So let's go back to Teesnap because I know a lot of people. I mean, there's always these stories in golf, right? There was boatloads of trade that I had to navigate through and whatnot. In the case of Teesnap, there's an investor call that's kind of famous in golf for people that don't know. Where and we're talking Allegiant now, an investor call for Allegiant, and Teesnap kind of comes up, and that ultimately. But you tell me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but that leads to a place where, hey, maybe it's best if someone else owns Teesnap. Is it fair for me to put it that way?
I don't think it was because of the investor call. I don't think that that's a fair characterization. There at the time, so Maury Gallagher and Tim Flynn were the investors in Golf Switch. So you mentioned, Maury had a history in golf.
Yes.
Larry Lippin, right? That's Tim Flynn, Maury's partner. and Maury Gallagher. So there's a little bit of history there. And then, of course, at the time, all the executives at Allegiant golfed, right? So kind of been there, done that. I actually flew down and played golf with Larry Lipton. So,
And for people that don't know, Golf Switch was one of the earliest booking engines in golf and actually got way out in front of a bunch of other people, had a lot of integrations, was frankly, it was worldwide. It had put a ton of languages in it. I mean, it was really pretty good.
right, right. So yeah, so I'm saying that because there was a little bit of institutional knowledge there, right? And then at the time, we were kind of the only real non-airline specific initiative, right? And then internally, there was kind of this rumor mill of what became Sunseeker, which was going to be, obviously demonstrably bigger than Teesnap. So I don't think I can place it directly on that call, but it was more just changing internal resources and what people cared about.
Understood. And so tell people, Brian, how do you go about selling a company? Because I do actually think we have a few entrepreneurs today in golf that maybe are at that stage where now it's time to hand it off to somebody else and see if they can sprint another 30 yards down the field with it. How do you go about selling when it's time to sell?
Very carefully. I mean, it's tricky, right? It's easiest to sell when things are going great. And that, Notify didn't ask any advice, but if I were them, man, I would sell the company as fast as possible.
Because things are going so great.
It's going so well. And it is going well. And I think it's I said, Mike, like you said, kind of publicly, I said many years ago that I thought Notify was a great idea, but it was just a matter of time before it became, potentially a feature. And to your point, they had out executed everybody on the go to market, but still, again, the forces are going to step in. It's why, like CourseRev as an example, right? Like I think ultimately, I think like a Club Caddie could go build that, like no problem.
You mentioned Club Caddie a couple times. Club Caddie is one of the fastest growing tee sheets in America. I think Jason Pearsall, the CEO.
Yeah, yeah.
What are I guess you're going to say good things, but like, what is your perspective on Club Caddie?
I mean, look, I'm still very much kind of on the outside of the industry, right? I mean, I got out in 2020, early 2020, so I've been out for 5.5 years, longer than 5.5 years. I mean, my perception is they're the up and coming company to beat, right? My understanding is, 4UP got acquired, Club Profit got acquired, like everybody got acquired, right? I mean, Teesnap got acquired, they're in private equity. Club Caddie is owned by Jonas, but I think that they have a different relationship, right? I think the Jonas acquisitions, Constellation acquisitions are uniquely structured.
They are. I don't know if I told you this. I spend a lot of time with the Ohio Golf Course Owners Association. It's become a passion project for me. It matters a lot to me, frankly. So I'm spending a lot of time with these owners. And somebody asked me the other day, he said, well, Mike, how long until somebody buys them? And so what I said to him as a member of the association was, actually, they're owned by Constellation Software. They don't sell anything. It is a buy and hold strategy. It's unique. Their strategy is unique, but they've built a massive company, I believe traded on the Canadian Stock Exchange, that has served them incredibly well. So yeah, I don't think Club Caddie is going to be acquired by anybody for decades.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. I think there's some story. I think like the founder of Constellation like had an early company and he sold it too early, and then it turned out to be like this multi-billion-dollar company. Right? He shouldn't have sold it, right? And so like he changed the strategy to buy and hold forever. And I don't know enough about the company to know, but I think they've more or less acquired and held forever.
Yes.
So to your point, I don't think there's a worry in that. But what I'm saying though is I think that relationship is built around sustainability, right? Not the classic, I want to buy for X and sell for 3X and do it in 7 years, which I'll say it out loud so you don't have to, Mike. But I mean, that literally is the strategy most of the ERPs are sucked into right now.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's how do you crank EBITDA? How do you get cash flow? How do you change the optics so you can, 2, 3, 4, 5x your money, do it in, 7 to 10, whatever your fund is, right? And move on. And because of that, I mean, the interest in, software development goes down. I mean, it all becomes like charge more, less commissions, less people, right? You're trying to kind of milk it. And I think the impression I get is Club Caddie's not in that space, right? And because of that, I think they're going to continue to do really well.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're in a good spot. I don't think GolfNow's going anywhere
I think,
anytime soon. I think that they're in a pretty good spot as well.
I mean, if I were to say it, I would say GolfNow and Club Caddie probably are in the two best positions in my opinion. And frankly, I don't even know that I view that, although they are competitors, I don't really view them as competitors.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting, Brian. What year is it, and is Golf Now a marketplace company or is it a technology company? So you never know. So there are probably years that they don't compete with each other much at all, but that's for another time. Okay, so tell us a little bit about Talus Ridge and maybe some other things that you're doing today. It'd be, I don't. Are you in golf at all, or is golf something of the past for you?
Well, I'm in golf right now on the cursory with Open Links Golf, openlinksgolf.com. I had this thesis with co-founder Paul Story to basically kill email. I want to put a gun to email's head and I want to kill it in golf. And the reason, Mike, is because golf changes every day. All the variables change. The grass changes, right? Food and beverage, everything changes every day. And I think personally that those changes should be marketed, and those should be marketed basically every day. Now, if you now one, how would you put together an email or multiple emails every day? The barrier to entry for that's still really high. So the idea was basically create more or less the Instagram of golf, where an individual could follow the golf courses. You're not fighting Kim Kardashian, Donald Trump, and whatever. You're not fighting algorithms of Taylor Swift, right? Like it's just golf. You're just following the course you want to follow. You just get push notifications of anything of, hey, like tee sheets wide open, play as a single, you probably play in 2.5 hours. Like that's a marketing message which resonates with me living in Lake Tahoe. I don't want to burn 6 hours playing golf, but like, if I could get a message that's like, hey, like tee sheets wide open on Tuesday, like I'm out. But no one's going to send me that email. And if you do send me that email and then 10 more, I'm going to unsubscribe. So the idea was is to give basically access to all the individuals at the course who have authority to make a simple like X/Instagram style post. And that's it. Right. And by doing so, you're giving the autonomy. Like there's no one bottleneck at a golf course. There's no like I'm the GM or I'm the person marketing. Like I have to figure this out. Like that all goes away. Like food and beverage can be like, hey, we got a new keg in. It's a IPA and it's a reserve thing. They can snap a photo of it and say, hey, IPA on draft today, right? Like whatever, right? And that can apply to every sector of the golf course. So superintendent could say, hey, car path only number 7. We got a sprinkler issue, right?
Overseed went great this year. Look at the place, something like that.
We're double cutting and top dressing and rolling the greens today. They're running 11.2, right? That could just be a superintendent or a sister. But again, these are like 5 to 25-second posts, not sit down for 45 minutes and try to craft one email.
Right.
Right. And you're getting them kind of throughout the day, right? As the variables change. And so I'm passionate about that with Paul to kind of push that narrative. And so we're in partnership with golf.com. So we deployed coursefinder.golf.com. That's us deployed with them, a tool for kind of golf course discovery with a lot of interesting data behind it. And then as part of that experience, you can claim your golf course by scanning the QR code as an operator and go through a self-authentication process. Right in the app, you can issue credentials to the other people at the golf course and they can get posting same day.
Nice. The self-authentication piece is big and will be bigger as I'm a big believer in the owner operator controlling their brand, right? And that's a really key piece. So I think that's good that you built it that way.
And then I studied separately from that. We studied kind of what course Rev's working on. I think the adoption's slow. I don't know the founder. I think it's Mana. I don't know him personally, but I give him a lot of credit for doing a good job. In something that's less operational change, and this is not a judgment on him, it's more of a comment on the industry's take on it. I think something like that, you should go from 0 to, 200-300 courses in 2 years, not 0 to 30 or 50, which is not a judgment on him. What I'm saying is I think the issue is, again, the golf industry trying to wrap their arms around that adoption and or pricing. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
And so I think for me to come into that space, I would want to come in extremely well financed if I was going to come into the space and go, how can we, like, we're not coming in ripping out Club Caddie or ripping out GolfNow. We'd be coming in being like, hey, we got to reprogram your phone. Like that's going to take 2 minutes. And then you're like, and then we have a little portal, upload some data and be done with it. Right.
Yes.
it's like how can that be thought about to go now we can actually onboard 300 golf courses a year.
And they should be able to onboard themselves at
Well,
11 o'clock at night and be live the next morning.
yeah, exactly. And what I'm not clear about is the demand from the industry,
Right. Right.
right? Do I think it's a great idea? Yes. Do I think that an operator should ever have to answer the phone again? No, I don't. But the operators need to come to that conclusion, and I don't think they are as fast as the rest of the vendors in that space want them to.
I think that's
It's not a judgment on any of the execution, right? I think the execution is great. I'm not convinced that it's going as well as.
yeah. And that's Del Radcliffe too, just for people that don't know. And actually, speaking of brand, I think they've done a nice job with their brand. I think their brand is attractive, and I really give Mana a lot of credit. This is probably 2 months ago now. At one point, they were going to do apps, they were going to do websites, and he actually publicly said, "Hey, I've changed my mind. We're going to stay laser focused on what we're doing here." And I really give him a lot of props for doing that. I think that was a great call.
Well, that too in golf. And then the Talus Ridge is a tactical. We developed this intellectual property in the defense space. I can't talk too much about it, but that's going extremely well. Hopefully, there's some good stuff for us to come in the next 6 months to a year.
Is Talus Ridge to market or no?
No, this will likely be intellectual property.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we'll keep our eyes open for that. So I appreciate your time. It's been good to catch up with you. You really are one of the original trailblazers in this space, and so I congratulate you on everything you did and the impact you've had and what you all started. The impact that's had on the industry on a long tail. It's been impressive.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So that is Bryan Lord, and I am Mike Hendrix. This was Tech Caddie Podcast. Goodbye.